Hey, welcome into This Week in Indiana Football, episode 16, your favorite podcast about the 14th best team in the Big Ten. Man, that is the second week in a row that I've gotten to say that. It almost feels like it's just going to become a part of the show from now on. Maybe we're the reason that Indiana is so bad. Maybe we were meant to have that as a slogan for This Week in Indiana Football. Welcome in again, as always. Dustin Schutte with me from Saturday Tradition. We're sponsored by Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I feel like I haven't said that recently. It's always on our little headers whenever we post a show each week, but sponsored by ISB Radio every Monday through Friday on YouTube. Now at 8:30. So it used to be 9 to 11 on YouTube. Now 8:30 to 10:30. We're also on the radio on WREF in Evansville and WBRO in Marengo in the afternoon. So be sure to check Jim Coyle out there. Dustin, it's the same week. Or was it same story, different week? And we're not going to sit. We got Mitchell Paige joining us, so that's going to provide a different perspective. We're excited to have former Indiana Hoosier Mitchell Paige joining us here in about 7 or 8 minutes or so. But it's bucket week, and it seems like all hope is lost for Indiana. They're probably going to have potentially their fourth-string quarterback and walk-on Grant Grimmel playing in that game. I mean, it could be a breath of fresh air like Donovan McCulley was whenever he got his first start against Maryland. But at the same time, I mean, you're down to your fourth-string quarterback. I don't even know that Ohio State, well, maybe Ohio State, they'd be fine if they were playing their fourth-string quarterback. But there's only maybe, you could probably count on one hand how many teams in college football would fare well with their fourth-string quarterback.
Yeah, Ohio State's fourth-string quarterback would be a guy named Quinn Ewers. So he might struggle a little bit, but he'd probably be just fine. Ultimately, I mean, yeah, this is you. At this point, we've talked about all kinds of different things for Indiana to play up to their competition level. They really haven't done that. We talked about them playing spoiler maybe to Rutgers in a bowl game. That didn't happen. We talked about them playing spoiler to Michigan. That didn't happen. Minnesota, they could have knocked them out of the Big Ten West race. That didn't happen. And now their last hope is that you can retain the Old Oak and Bucket with a win over Purdue and keep them at 7-5. Purdue's still going to a bowl game, so you can't really spoil too much for them.
But at the same time, I don't think Purdue wants to lose to this Indiana team. That's the other side of that.
Well, I don't think Purdue wants to lose to any Indiana team.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I mean, I get what you're saying. It would be a big blemish on what's been an otherwise really good season for Jeff Brom, considering where they bounced back from last season. Like, it's been the opposite effect, right? Like,
it would be a really nice silver lining for the Hoosiers. I mean, at this point, I don't know if there's very many fans, except for the super fans who think that Indiana really has a legitimate shot to win in Ross-Ade Stadium this weekend. I mean, and if that's the case, I mean, that's exactly what it doesn't matter what your record is. If you can win the last game of the season against your rival, that's good, positive momentum going into the offseason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to carry something into the offseason that you can hang your hat on. But what's going to be interesting to me is I've felt like these past couple games, especially the Rutgers game, I felt like this Indiana team hasn't really wanted to play. They don't look like they want to show up. And I hate to say that about, a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids who are putting they put their heart, soul, and effort into this, but you got beat 38-3 by Rutgers. I mean, that to me, that's effort. It's not that you lost. It's the way you lost. To me, that was all effort. And I know Minnesota's better, but they're a team that's on their fourth and fifth string running backs. Tanner Morgan hasn't played well all season long. I mean, I understand that at some point depth comes into this. At some point, the defense is just exhausted because they're not getting any help from the offense. So to me, it's a question of, has this team kind of packed it in, or on the other side of the coin, do they have one last burst of energy that they can get really fired up, really energized for this game, knowing it's a rivalry game, knowing you can end the season on a positive note? Do we see any sort of juice come out of the locker room at 3:30? I think it's a 3:30 kick in West Lafayette.
And speaking of throwing in the towel, another current player puts their name into the transfer portal last night. Jacoby Hewitt, right as the Indiana basketball game was getting started. So it's like he thought he could slip away when everyone was turning their attention towards the basketball game. And I mean, in my opinion, that's probably the biggest loss so far in the transfer portal. Not that Jacoby Hewitt had necessarily proved himself yet, but when you go back to last year, you remember how crucial he was in the game against Penn State specifically, coming up with one or two big catches on that final drive that helped them get to overtime. It's crazy how somebody like him, and I don't remember what his class was, how many years of eligibility he had left, but when somebody like him is going into the transfer portal, if it wasn't obvious enough already, there's something wrong right there.
Well, it makes you wonder what kind of conversations have been had with the offensive coordinator, with the position coaches in that locker room. I mean, I don't know how that stuff works. Maybe there's a conversation, maybe there's not. But on some level, the offense hasn't worked. Maybe they know that a change is imminent, that they're going to be playing a different offensive coordinator, playing for a different position coach. I don't know what the circumstances. Maybe he's just homesick. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's
from
not,
Cordova, Tennessee, I believe. So
I was going to say,
you might see him play for the Volunteers.
He could be homesick. It could be just a bad fit. There's a lot of different possibilities here, so it's hard to speculate. But this is the time of year where you're going to start to see every team. I don't think it's going to be just Indiana. You're going to see a lot of teams in college football, see a lot of players enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, and I think maybe you kind of touched on this a second ago, but obviously it's not public what's going to potentially and almost inevitably happen to Nick Sheridan after the game ends, win or loss this Saturday against Purdue. But do you think, and the reason I ask this question is because I don't know any better, maybe you do, but do you think there are conversations, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you think Tom Allen has maybe already told Nick Sheridan he's gone?
That's a question I've been kind of considering the past 6 weeks or so, maybe, because I'm not even trying to be mean or funny about it. I'm just like, to me, I feel like the writing has to be on the wall, right? Like, Indiana has scored 87 points against Big Ten teams this season. That's the lowest in Power 5 against your conference opponents. Even Vanderbilt has scored 88, and they've played
with one less game, right?
Yes, with one less game. So, like, that, it's just not working. So, it's hard for me speaking with Tom Allen a few different times since he's been in Indiana, and the kind of vibe he gives off, he very much gives me the vibe that he would sit down with somebody and say, this isn't working. We're going to have to make a change. I'll let you finish out the season, but we're going to move on. Now, whether if that message happened or not, I don't know. Whether that message was then relayed to the team and the players, I don't know. So there's just a lot of factors that I think you have to consider here, but it would not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if that conversation has been had.
Another thing before we bring on Mitchell Paige, a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans are pretty fed up with Matt Canada right now, which is pretty interesting considering the fact that Matt Canada has Indiana ties. I don't know. I know we've talked about this before and how he's he wants to do his own thing. I mean, maybe Tom Allen is willing to let Matt Canada do his own thing at this point with his back against the wall. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see if when the time comes, if Matt Canada is a candidate for that coordinator job. But let's go ahead and bring on, man, he's got Pacers gear on. He's
hey, there we go. Yeah.
He's jumping ship. It's former Indiana Hoosier wide receiver Mitchell Paige. How's it going, my man?
What's going on, guys?
I like the Christmas decorations in the background today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually I'm doing this from Indiana, back up here for Thanksgiving, so made the trip. It's cold here, and that I don't know what you guys are doing up here. That's the last thing I'll say about that. It's way too cold.
Well, I'm not. I'm in Georgia, so I'm
in Kentucky.
Yeah. Kentucky was freezing.
It's true. I mean, I was definitely wearing a jacket today going to and from work, but I mean, in the 40s is not too bad. It's appropriate for this time of year, I feel like.
I suppose it is some football weather.
So we were talking about the inevitable change that is to come with Nick Sheridan. We're not trying to jump the gun and act like it's already happened, but I just got done asking the question to Dustin. Do you think conversations have already happened in the locker room, not in the locker room, but like between Tom Allen and Nick Sheridan, like, hey, we're not going to make this public, but we're going to let you, we're going to get rid of you, but we're going to let you ride out the rest of the season. As somebody who is a former player, did you ever see stuff like that happening behind the scenes back whenever you were playing under Kevin Wilson, or do you think this is something that is actually happening right now?
Yeah, when I was there was never anything that seemed like it was already such a done deal. It's extremely bizarre. The press conferences, post-game press conferences have been – it's like we're talking about him, but we don't know that he's in the room. They're kind of uncomfortable to watch. Like, yeah, we're not going to discuss the changes that are coming, but we need to throw the ball. We need to do this, and we need to do this, and we're not doing it. And it's almost uncomfortable to watch. It's bizarre, and I don't understand all of it, obviously, and I'm not a head coach, but I don't understand the value of saying things like that, but then keeping them in the building. It doesn't do anybody any good. If you're going to make a move, make the move. I didn't think there was any reason to wait unless there was no move going to be made. But now it seems like the move's already been made, and now you have players that it's just like it's a hard dynamic because he's in the meeting rooms every day, and the players are hearing these press conferences, and it's like a big elephant in the room that I'm sure no one talks about, but it's the biggest elephant in the program right now.
And it's got to be hard to go out and play for your offensive coordinator when you kind of probably know that you're not going to be getting plays called by him next season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not your offensive coordinator anymore by all intents and purposes because of the way that he's portrayed by even people inside the building. I thought this was one of the weirdest, and Tom Allen is usually he's very transparent, I think, in a lot of things that he talks about. I think he's one of the best about doing that. And sometimes I guess I would rather wish he wasn't so transparent because as a fan, it's almost more frustrating. Because like if the Band-Aid's coming off, just rip it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we saw with Nebraska, obviously, a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Scott Frost got rid of basically his entire offensive staff, save the tight ends coach, right, Dustin?
Yeah, for the OC, the quarterbacks coach, the running backs coach, and the offensive line coach, all out.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Mitchell.
It's not an unprecedented move. Coaches are left on the tarmac after the game. I'm not saying you have to leave the coach on the tarmac, but there's too much money in big-time college football to string somebody along like that, especially for him. If you're going to fire him, he's got to go find another job. This is his livelihood. This is how he puts food on the table. Give him as long as possible time to go out and do his search and make sure he ends up in the best spot for him. Because I don't think he's definitely not a bad guy. And I don't think he's a bad coordinator, but right now, with what he hasn't come up with a plan that makes sense in the Big Ten. That's not to say he can't go to the SEC or the Big 12 or maybe down to like FCS or whatever it is he has to do to rebound. He's not ever going to be able to figure it out. It just hasn't worked in Indiana. And I think the situation, the way it's played out, has just been a huge disservice to the program and to Nick Sheridan himself.
Yeah, and I know we always talk about Nick Sheridan because he's kind of the head honcho of the offense, but there's obviously plenty of other issues, specifically with like Darren Hiller on the offensive line. I know certain people have issues with the wide receivers coach as well. And so, I mean, it may not be just Nick Sheridan gone, but we could see Grant Hurd gone potentially. We could see Darren Hiller. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if – I don't think Delon McCullough would be gone, especially with his track record and this being his first season back. I think he's for sure going to be there. But it wouldn't surprise me if you see 3 or 4 guys off the staff next year.
Yeah, I think Delon – or Coach McCullough – sorry, I won't go first name basis with him. But I think he adds so much more value than just coaching running backs. In my time at Indiana, he was the premier recruiter on the staff. Any recruits that came around, the biggest and best recruits were hanging out with Coach McCullough because his personality is magnetic. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the way that he kind of interacts with people, but he's an extremely positive kind of lightning rod of energy that Indiana needs. And he's definitely the right guy for that job, and probably an even larger role in the program is something that hopefully happens in the future. But I don't want to get into too much of the weeds about the. I'm happy to. When I say Nick Sheridan, I mean the whole offensive staff, apart from probably Deland, but I don't want to get into the weeds about personal feelings of any of them because, I don't know those guys, but just from what I've seen, there needs to be something that happens because it's hard to feel this way every Saturday morning.
Well, I think I was going to say, I think that the one thing that to me that Tom Allen has going for him is, well, there's two things in my opinion. One, that with the exception of this year, this program has been on the rise. They're getting better in recruiting. They've continually gotten better throughout the seasons. I know that they had a drop off. The other thing to me is that you saw Kalen DeBoer come in one season. Now he's a head coach at Fresno State. You saw Kane Womack take over the defense for 2 years. Now he's a head coach. So in my opinion, Indiana has that track record of if you come here and do a really good job, you'll be a head coach in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, am I over looking too much into that?
Absolutely not. And I don't think you're not going to just be a head coach. You're going to places that are kind of big time programs. South Alabama, they were undefeated or something a couple of years ago. Like these are programs that you're not going there to rebuild. Fresno State has been good, an 8-win, 9-win type team since I was born. Like that's a great program. They've done things right for a long time. They've produced all kinds of NFL talent. When you get a job like that, that's a significant pay raise, career move. I don't want to say Indiana's a springboard because it's the Big Ten, but in the past couple of years, they've played springboard to some guys that have changed their lives. And it's not a hard sell to come to Indiana, come play, learn from a guy like Tom Allen that so clearly has the off the field stuff exactly right. So clearly, because a lot of places, coaches are great with the X's and O's, and then they're just blank spaces, blank canvas off the field. And that doesn't work at all. So being able to mix the two is like the most important thing as a head coach, and learning from Tom Allen, like I said, someone that's so clearly right in that way. It's an easy sell to get guys to come. And they are.
Go ahead.
They're as good as they've been in a very long time. They don't stink this year, but they're down. We'll call them. They're down.
Yeah. The hope is that this is just a blip in what has been growing in the past. Because, I mean, prior to this, I mean, 2 of the past 3 or 3 of the last 4? I mean, Tom Allen's gotten at least 7 or 8 wins. I think it's 2 of the past 3.
Yeah.
Because he hadn't gotten 3 straight bowl games.
My last 2 years, we were in a bowl game. Tom Allen's first year, he didn't go. Next year, he's playing in the Gator Bowl. And the year after that, he's in the Outback Bowl. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard.
Many might have argued could have been a better bowl than the Outback Bowl, to be honest.
Right. It's 4 out of 5 years that we start in the pinstripe. Then Foster Farms is half a step up from the pinstripe. And then you go play Tennessee in the Gator Bowl. Significant step up. And then you're going to play Ole Miss, who has a quarterback that is as good as anybody in the country. Now they're a top 15 team at worst. And you're playing them in the Outback Bowl. The program is doing the right things. The money is being invested into the program. They're getting players. They'll lose some players probably this year because we didn't have the year we were all expecting. And I kind of say good, right? Indiana was built on guys that wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. And it's been nice to hear Tom Allen talk about we're going to find out who wants to be here for next year. And if you aren't in, then you're not in at all. And I think that's a good thing.
That's true. I mean, you're going to find out who the next Micah McFadden's are essentially, because he was a nobody coming out of Florida who I doubt he had any other Division I offers or at least Power 5 offers. And so that's a prime example of the guys that Tom Allen wants to keep in his program. But switching gears, obviously it's bucket game week. Before we get into this specific one, what did the bucket game mean to you just playing in it every year?
I mean, I'm an Indiana kid, and being in Indianapolis, we kind of have some We got the 50-50 split, Purdue and IU. It's not like growing up in Bloomington where it's all IU. So getting to go to school after IU wins the bucket and talk trash to all my friends was the best. And then going in and scoring touchdowns in their facility I wouldn't trade that for anything. It was the best. It's my favorite day of the year. That's for sure.
And that's one thing. So before you came on too, Dustin and I were talking, does this team have any motivation left in it? And even when seasons aren't going the way it's planned, it seems like most of the guys, especially the in-state guys, should be able to get up for this game and realize that you can find positive momentum if you're able to win this, especially against a pretty good Purdue team.
Yeah, I think when you say find motivation, it for whatever reason brought me back. My first couple years at IU, Purdue had some tough years. They were winning 1, 2, maybe 3 games a year, and they were getting blown out by people. And they would come out and play like they were undefeated against us. It was just a different level of intensity, and our programs were just at 2 different points. Indiana was getting better and better, and Purdue seemed like they were in the desert for a couple of years.
Isn't it weird how I feel like, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I've thought it several times. There's never a year, we can't ever get Indiana and Purdue to be good in the same season.
One of these times. I think it's a lot closer than people think. There's going to be a top 20, at least top 25 matchup at the end of the year for some pretty significant bowl implications in the near future. Because both these programs, David Bell to me is the best player in the country. I haven't seen anybody that's more dominant than him. I know that they have a big D end or like George Karlaftis or something. Mm-hmm. I know he's a good player. Their quarterback's gotten better and better, and they call plays and run around with reckless abandon. They can do anything to anybody on any day, as they've shown, beating the teams that they've beat. And if Indiana can do the same, like, let's go, roll the dice. We don't need to snap the ball to Peyton Hendershot with 10 offensive linemen. Throw the ball down the field. I know the biggest thing that hurts Indiana, and it has all year, is they don't have a ton of speed at wide receiver, and they don't have someone like David Bell that you can put by himself and he can be triple covered and you just kind of throw it up underhand and he goes and makes a play. A lot of teams don't have that. It's hard to go 20 plays, 80 yards in QB draw. You have, and I know they're injured, but like, you got to take some shots. And that's truly the only chance that I see Indiana having is they've got to connect on some down the field shots and kind of rely on the potentially unrealistic energy that you get when you wake up on bucket day. It's a different kind of energy. It's just a different. You feel. I can't even describe it. It just is. It's different, and anything can truly.
It just means more, happen. Right? Like in the SEC.
Yeah, exactly. Just means more. But it truly does. Anything can happen. Indiana's been as bad as anybody in the country. And then come out and punch Purdue in the face and go. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to ask. I mean, to me, and because there's been other games on, I haven't been able to watch all 60 minutes of Indiana the last few weeks. But to me, like the offense at this point, there's nothing to lose. So why are we not mixing it up, throwing it down the field? You know what? Like at this point, what do you have to lose? I mean, I guess you don't want to get completely embarrassed, but 38-3 against Rutgers.
You've already been completely embarrassed, though. That's
like what? And by the, I mean, like Purdue embarrassed Iowa and Michigan State, so it wouldn't be like they're alone in that category. I just think that if you're gonna, you have to throw everything out the window here to just try to go win a football. Have some fun with it. Just throw the ball all over the yard because you know Purdue's going to do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I would rather lose 55-0 than 17-7. Like we got to do something. Throw the ball down the field. I mean, we've already got beat 55-0 like 4 times. Just chalk it up again. You got to do something. Especially we talked about early, like the guy hasn't lost his job yet, but all signs point to that. Throw it around. Who knows? Having a day, I truly believe this. In the Indiana program, it really matters as much as if you have a day that just all the stars align and you throw for 500 yards and you beat Purdue in their place to get your third win of the season, that's a potentially job-saving kind of deal.
You think so?
It's potentially.
I don't know that Nick Sheridan could put up 50 points and save his job.
It would have to be something significant.
Because here's what I think. If Indiana's putting up 55 points, Nick Sheridan's not. He's like somebody. One of the other offensive coaches is calling the plays, and we don't know it.
Do they have 55 points in Big Ten play yet? I don't think they do.
They have 87 total points,
which is according to
then
Dustin,
they definitely don't.
It's the lowest of any Power 5 school against Power 5 teams,
Big
correct?
10?
87 points in 8 Big Ten games. Yes.
Oh, that's way more than I would have thought. Oh, Maryland. Maryland.
Maryland saved him.
The outlier. But I mean, there's 5 games where they haven't had over 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
At one point, through the 7th until this Minnesota game, I have not redone the math. But when you threw that Maryland game out, they were averaging 6.5 or 6.4 points per game in Big Ten play. I apologize for that.
No, that's how I watched most of the game this past weekend.
What do you think, Kevin Wilson? I mean, not that Kevin Wilson's thinking about Indiana all the time, but like
he's not.
When he sees
I promise you that.
Well, that's what I mean. But like when he sees that kind of stuff, is he's just like, I'm sure he's not like, you shouldn't have gotten rid of me kind of thing at this point. But do you think he kind of chuckles when he sees stuff like that after what he was able to do?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I don't think it's kind of chuckles. He's like, I told you. I mean, he was scoring 50 points a game with people like me in the game. He's got athletes all over the field. He's got quarterbacks who can throw the ball. He's got big linemen that don't block anybody for some reason. He's got a defense that is phenomenal still, I believe. They've been put in some terrible situations. If we're going to do the stats thing, I was actually talking to my dad today when I pulled in, and I'd be curious how many drives, all games, the opponent started farther away than their own 40-yard line, if that makes sense. Like, how many times did they start on their own 39 or farther? I don't think that – please, because I would guess it's 50-50. Like average starting spot for, especially in the Big Ten. I mean, we've had 3rd and 30, half the possessions that we've had in the Big Ten. We're punting from our own end zone. I'd be curious. I mean, we're giving up a lot of points, but when it's a 8-play, 45-yard drive for a touchdown, I mean, what are we talking about?
Right. It's also disappointing that Indiana likely has the worst punter in the Big Ten. When you see the rest of the elite punters that are like Torrey Taylor, Blake Hayes, there's a third one that's pretty good, right, Dustin?
There's lots of them. Bryce Behringer at Michigan State, Jordan Stout at Penn State. I can't think. Adam Korsak at Rutgers. He's really good. I mean, you could go down the list. I'm blanking right now, but there's a lot of really good.
Whitehead was good previously, but obviously you can only have him for so many years, you know. But.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be 38 punting. You can't be 38 years old punting at Indiana. That kid was older than me on his recruiting visit.
Are you serious? Wow. Was he that old?
Yes.
Was he 38?
No.
You're joking. You're joking. You say this isn't.
You can't fall.
It's not even legal.
No, that's not real.
Well, there wasn't the punter, but I think Miami had a punter who was in his 30s, wasn't he? Who got recruited?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, Jordan Bohannon on the Iowa basketball is about 27 now at this point. I mean, I know it's because of COVID, but
yeah, hasn't him and the kid at Wisconsin that's married or getting married to Tyra Buss? What's his name?
Brad Davison.
Yeah, Brad Davison.
They were talking last night or whenever it was. Yeah, last night. That they've spanned 3 presidencies. What an insane stat that is.
That is crazy.
That's an insane stat. Very funny, though.
Well, before we move completely off this Kevin Wilson topic, this is a question. This is a better question than what John has. Does he have the easiest job in America right now? As now you take a drink, I'm going to have to filibuster here a little bit.
No, I was thinking. It'd be hard for me better.
You're starting to cut in and out a little bit.
Uh-oh.
You there, Mitchell? Your video is fine, but your mic's kind of gone. Where's that elevator music when you need it, Dustin?
I know. This is very suspenseful. It's still not working.
Man. Mitchell, maybe drop out and come back in, and
I wanted to know.
Hopefully.
I was really looking forward to this answer.
So while we're waiting for him, I would like to thank you for the low-key shot at my question. I guess it is obvious Kevin Wilson is probably laughing about it, but
well, okay. So the thought behind this, I don't know if he can hear this, but my thought process is, I feel like Ryan Day has a lot of control over the offense, even though Kevin Wilson has that co-offensive coordinator title. This is what I imagine happens. Ryan Day says, let's call this play. And Kevin Wilson says, yeah, that sounds good. And then they go 70 yards for a touchdown.
What's the point of having Kevin Wilson? And Mitchell's back with us.
That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like he's got it in a really, like, I would never leave that job if I was him.
Yeah, I'm back, and I agree. Because, I mean, they just have an arsenal. They have so many weapons. Their quarterback is phenomenal, and he's just getting better every week. What they just did to Michigan State should be illegal.
Yep.
It was a freight train. I don't think Michigan State's a bad team. They just got absolutely bulldozed. They're primed for just years and years of dominance. And Kevin Wilson gets to coach tight ends. He's an absolute genius on offense. So he's doing a lot more work than I think people will give him credit for behind the scenes.
Do you think he's more of the scheme and Ryan Day's more of here's what we're going to run?
I bet he has his hand a little bit more in all of it. I notice I watched him this weekend and saw a lot of the stuff that we used to do, and a lot of teams do the stuff that we used to do. So I'm not saying it was all Kevin Wilson, but we took it from somebody, and then somebody took it from them, and then everybody's running the same stuff except for Indiana apparently. But it's a lot of the same stuff that Kevin Wilson does, and you see a lot of similarities in the tempos, the speed up. They get a first down, and then they try to run the next play in 10 seconds. So you get base defense to first down to shot and try to score a touchdown. It's very similar to how we used to play offense. And then you throw in just the unbelievable talent they have on that roster. It's an absolute recipe for success. And I think Kevin Wilson should get more credit than he is for what's going on there, because he's an absolute genius when it comes to play design and play calling.
Well, Mitchell, I got two things. I'm either going to let you go right here if you want, or we're about to get into our last pick'ems of the year if you want to participate in our pick'ems.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do pick'ems. I want this question too, because this can be short, but I just want to know, what's it like spending Thanksgiving with the team? Like, that's always a question I've never had answered. But like, what's it like to go through that holiday? Is it you're with your team? Is it awesome? Sometimes you're not with your family? Like, what's that whole experience like? It probably depends on whether you're at home and on the road too, I would guess.
Yeah, so I was fortunate. I got kind of the best of both worlds, because you don't have school, there's no class, so it's just talking about how much you hate Purdue, which is awesome. You've got a bunch of special meetings, special like guest speaker type deals. You've got outings with the team. It's a really, really fun week. And then also on Thanksgiving, we got like a 24-hour window where I got to go home and have dinner with my family, and it's only an hour and a half drive or whatever it is. So that was super easy for me. It probably would have been harder if my family was in Georgia or Florida, where a lot of these guys are from. But I kind of got the best of both worlds. Thanksgiving week was the best for me. I do have a funny story about Thanksgiving, which is I was a true freshman, and my roommate had quit the team. He was also a walk-on. He was a long snapper. He just went to school. He's a great dude, but he was home for Thanksgiving. And my freshman year, I hurt my back real bad. I was deadlifting, didn't know how to deadlift, so had some disc issues. And and it would lock up, and I would like be paralyzed. I would fall on the ground, and I just had to wait for the spasm to be over. So after practice on like a Tuesday, I'm going back to my dorm in Briscoe Shoemaker. I'm on the 10th floor. There's no one on my floor. And I put my key in the door and go to push it open. And it was just a weird move, and it sparked my back. And I had my phone in my left hand. Locks up. I fall on the ground. Phone's like just away from my hand. And I'm screaming for somebody to help me. No one in the building.
Wow.
I was on the ground for like 2 hours thinking all about, you remember those Life Alert commercials? That's all I could think about was like, God, I've been making fun of those commercials for my whole life, and now look at me. It's coming back to get me.
Football players should have
Life Alert.
Oh,
there were no residence assistants, no RAs.
Oh, there was nobody. It was ghost.
And like the phone was just out of reach, so it was like a horror movie. Like you're trying to get your fingertips on it, and you can't quite reach it.
I like to tell it that way, but it was really like 3 feet away. But I literally couldn't move over. It was just shooting pain down my legs, all bad.
Wow.
But it eventually quit, and I went to practice.
Oh man,
there you go. An inside scoop at a former player's Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving break that it happened.
Yeah, on Tuesday. So everybody was for sure gone because the dorms closed.
Okay, well that makes sense why there was no RAs or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, the dorms would close Sunday morning, and nobody was coming until probably Sunday morning the next week.
See, down at WKU, they made at least to my knowledge, they made the athletes or most of the athletes stay in, I guess you call them 24/7 dorms where they were actually open over the holidays. Maybe that's just something that's become more common practice recently, but whatever.
Yeah.
Someone could have been there to save you, Mitchell.
It was very fun. I actually didn't tell anybody about that for like a year and a half. And the trainers, when I told them, were like, "Are you kidding me? How did you not tell us any of this?"
Wow.
But it was all good. Kevin Wilson thought I was very tough for that.
Oh yeah.
And then he probably started yelling at me again, but I probably deserved it.
All right, man, we got to get to these pick'ems because not only does Dustin got to get to the Pacers to watch the Pacers game, but it looks like you're going to be watching Pacers Bulls tonight too.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's get into these pick'ems. We've got 7 games on tap, final week of Big Ten play, week 13. Just to give it, Mitchell has no idea what the records are for these. We've been doing these every week. Obviously, Mitchell's a guest picker, but Dustin's up on me by 9. So there's no way that I'm coming back on this. Dustin's record is 80-18. I'm 71-27.
Okay,
this is not against the spread. Just FYI.
Okay. I was
I must be behind the times. Gamble? Am I the only person that doesn't do betting like when it comes to pick'ems nowadays?
Probably.
I mean, I guess College Game Day doesn't, do they?
No, but they don't pick every game.
Them.
They don't pick.
We pick every Big Ten game though.
Right.
Yeah, but
not like we pick every game. But what were you saying, Mitchell?
I was going to say something mean, so I'm not going to say it.
Say it mean. Dustin's already said something mean. You can join the party. I said something mean to you on Twitter indirectly the other night, so maybe I deserve it.
Yeah. No, it's not to you. It was going to say, you're picking the whole Big Ten, but you get to pick against Indiana, so that's easy.
Oh, okay. Last week, I think, was the first time, and Dustin did it as well, first time that I had a perfect week. Most of the time when I pick against Dustin, I'm wrong. So we know who the smarter one is here.
You rolling though? That's an impressive record.
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of. I mean, you see 71 victories, but you also see 27 blemishes, at least, and then 80-18. But I don't know what that percentage is. But hey, we got to get rolling. First up, we got a Friday. We got our last Friday night game in the Big Ten. Iowa at Nebraska. And I don't have rankings because obviously the CFP rankings don't come out till tomorrow. But we've got an Iowa team who is currently an underdog to a Nebraska team that only has 3 wins, which it's funny, but it also makes perfect sense when you look at how good statistically Nebraska actually is.
Dustin.
So, I mean, I don't know. Even when Adrian Martinez was going to play in this game, he's not now. The line is now shifted in favor of Iowa. But even
so Iowa's in favor now. Okay.
Iowa's now a favorite because Adrian Martinez is not playing. My problem with that line is what would give you any faith that Nebraska could win a one-possession game based on what we've seen this season? So I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes. Even if Adrian Martinez was playing, I was going to pick Iowa just because they found ways to lose all season long.
Mitchell?
I saw something on Twitter today that a lifelong Nebraska fan passed away during their bye week. In his obituary, he said, Nebraska has disappointed me for the past 5 years or however long it's been. Well, that I don't be disappointed anymore. That's why
Well, I don't know if y'all can on our end, Dustin. You're kind of choppy right now. I don't know if your connection's dropping.
Okay.
I heard I got the gist of what was just said.
Okay.
But you may need to try it one more time or you hop back on. But
a guy says,
here, go ahead and drop back out. It's still doing it. I don't know what it is. Sorry, Mitchell. All right, Mitchell will be back to give his take or tell us his story about the Nebraska fan who passed away. But
I think I know what he's talking about too. I think I saw the same story that he was talking about, but I couldn't hear exactly what it was. But I think I know what he's talking about.
I've got Iowa as well. It's something that I guess you kind of took the words from me, Adrian Martinez, whether he's out or not. And Nebraska, as a matter of fact, I think Jeffrey the Greek has this stat. He's been keeping up with this stat. But if Nebraska loses another one-possession game, they either tie a record for the most in a single season or they break the record. I don't know if you know that for sure, Dustin, or not, but they're doing one or the other this week if it happens, obviously.
I think they break the record, but I'm not 100%.
Wow.
I'd have to go back and look.
So, Mitchell, hopefully everything.
Yeah, is this better?
Out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, I'll be quick. So, basis of story. Guy died, passed away last week. Older gentleman, natural kind of deal. He said he's been a lifelong Nebraska fan, and they've disappointed him for too many years. And the best thing they did for him was having a bye week so they couldn't lose on the day that he passed away. And then at the end of it, he said, but I do have hope against Iowa. And in lieu of sending prayers, I want you to put an irresponsible bet on the Cornhuskers to win money line. So I have to take Nebraska. Have to. You can't. I mean, this is what he wants. I'm taking him. And that's the end of the story. This guy is like an absolute legend. It's the funniest tweet I've ever seen. I'm taking him.
Dustin, is this a story you said you thought you may have heard?
I'd have to go back and read it. I saw something. I think it probably is what I saw, but I didn't read it in full detail. So
yeah,
that's incredible.
I mean,
that's spooky if it happens like that too.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I like it, but it'll kind of freak me out. But yeah, I'm all in on Cornhuskers responsibly.
By the way, I've also got to ask you another Nebraska question before we move on. And we're not going to run out of time. We still got a few minutes, but we talked about this at the very beginning of the season, and I brought it up last week. And Indiana plays Nebraska again next season in Lincoln. I think Chucky the Doll should be the official rivalry trophy of Indiana-Nebraska when they play ever so often in their crossover games. You're aware of the whole Whop Phillier Chucky the Doll situation from a couple years ago, right?
I am not.
Oh, so Whop Phillier brought this. I can't remember if Indiana posted on their official football social media or what, but he brought this Chucky the Doll, and it was in the locker room during the Indiana-Nebraska game. And I don't remember what he did with it after the fact, but the focal point of the celebration was the doll. And obviously you have all of the aftermath with Fred Glass and Tom Allen and a bunch of heads butting. And so it seems like it's just written in the stars that has to be the rivalry trophy for when Indiana and Nebraska play.
I'm in. It worked last time.
There's already enough rivalry trophies in the Big Ten. Why not add another?
Absolutely. Playing for this
moving on,
baby.
Moving on, a game that I guess they only play because they were the most two recent teams added to the Big Ten. So they're pseudo rivals, Maryland and Rutgers. Oh. But we've got something legit to play for. Both teams are 5-6 going for bowl eligibility. Rutgers hasn't been to a bowl since 2014, I believe. Maryland in a very crucial season right now with Mike Loxley. So I mean, this is a game where whoever wins, I mean, one of them's taking a step in the right direction. The other one's wondering what the heck happened.
Yeah, for me, I think Greg Schiano's the better coach, but they have very similar issues to Indiana. They can't move the ball. I think Maryland can score enough points, and they've got enough talent at the receiver position to maybe win this game like 21-7. I just don't think Rutgers has enough points in them to win this game, so I'm going to go with Maryland.
Yeah, me too. Indiana gave Rutgers the ball 6 times. So, and it still wasn't a blowout. The score was, but it never felt like Rutgers was beating the brakes off them, and they had 6 turnovers. So I think Maryland wins in a big way.
I went with Rutgers. You all make it sound like a horrible pick now. I almost regret choosing it, but hey, sometimes you got to go with this. I do my pick'ems before the show, so I'm not convinced to change my mind. So
That's
I went
fair.
with Rutgers early. We're going to go ahead and stick with it. Who knows? I mean, they're both 5-6. Anything can happen, and it's in Piscataway, so we'll see.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
Moving on, Penn State at Michigan State. Michigan State coming off that brutal loss to Ohio State and Columbus. Penn State kind of trying to not salvage their season, but they've kind of fallen off the map a little bit after what's happened the past several weeks. So what do we got here for you, Dustin?
Yeah, I go back and forth on this game. I think Penn State is still more talented, but Michigan State has found ways to win football games this season. I'm going to go with Penn State in this because I think they generated a little bit of momentum in that Rutgers game. Even though it's on the road, I think they can end their season on a high note with that ugly-ass land grant trophy.
The land. First of all, Maryland and Rutgers, they don't play for a trophy, right?
I don't believe so, no.
And Iowa, Nebraska's for the chair?
No, that's Nebraska, Minnesota. They play for is it the Freedom Trophy? I think it's the Freedom
right,
Trophy.
But I don't know. Yeah, who knows? Maryland and Rutgers need something, but maybe it'll eventually come to fruition. Mitchell, what do you got? Penn State, Michigan State.
Yeah, I think Michigan State. I'm going to take Spartans. After you get beat like that, I bet they were ready to play Sunday morning. Just get that one out of their system. I think they're a lot better team than that. They just got in front of a freight train, unfortunately, and once the train left the station, there was no catching up. So I think Sparty rebounds and finishes the right way.
I've got Penn State more along the lines of what Dustin said. I do think I'm kind of actually on the opposite, I guess, of more so of what Mitchell said. I think they're not going to respond. I feel like that Ohio State, I don't want to say deflated them, but whenever you get the hype that you've been getting all season long, it's kind of a lot like Indiana. And then all of a sudden you're falling off and you're not the program like a Michigan or an Ohio State. Not that Michigan State hasn't had success nationally. I just don't know that this soon under Mel Tucker that they'll be ready to respond in a certain way. And obviously this is just a guess. I could be wrong. Dustin's up on me by 9 points, but I'm not going against Dustin here. I'm going against Mitchell.
Yeah.
We've never done a threesome with pick'ems before, but so that's why I'm getting confused. Next up, we got Northwestern at Illinois. Do we have a rivalry trophy? I'm probably going to ask this every time.
Yeah, you're going to ask this every time. The Land of Lincoln Trophy, also known as the LOL. It's a big Abraham Lincoln hat.
That's cool. Okay.
So there's that. Northwestern can't find any offense either. Illinois, I think, is playing better at the last 4 or 5 games or so. So I'm going to pick the fighting Brett Bielema's to get to 5-7.
Fighting Brett Bielema's. Mitchell.
I actually haven't watched a single second of either of these two teams. All I know is that both of them don't do a lot of the things that you have to do to win. So I think Illinois, just because Northwestern's stadium is boring. I don't even know where the game is.
I believe it's in Champaign. But
okay. Well, you can't have a stadium that boring and win games like this. You'd Illini by 1 million.
I've got Illinois as well. Illini by 1 million. Heck yeah. Next up,
is that the most boring stadium to play in?
I mean,
Ryan Field. How is it not Ryan Field?
That's what I'm asking. He said.
I thought he said Memorial Stadium in Champaign.
No.
Oh no. Ryan Field, number one. I didn't get to play let's see, 2 stadiums I didn't get to play in were Minnesota and Nebraska, and those have some stuff to them. So I can't imagine. I mean, Ryan Field, I feel like every time we were there, we were asleep for the first 2 quarters. They use it to their advantage, truly, especially when they were good back then. It's hard to come out and kind of fire.
Yeah, I always thought it's no longer TCF Bank Stadium, is it, Dustin? Didn't they rename it this year?
Huntington Bank Stadium, yep.
Huntington Bank, I guess the bank changed or whatever, but I always thought Minnesota Stadium was very underrated. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the design of it. It's kind of cool looking. You got the big M. I don't know, but enough about stadiums. Moving on, we got, speaking of Minnesota, we got Wisconsin at Minnesota, and this is the, I mean, I'm gonna be wrong. It's not Paul Bunyan. It's Michigan State.
No, you're right. Paul Bunyan's X.
It is?
Yep. There's a Paul Bunyan trophy, which is Michigan State.
That's
and then
okay, yeah.
The Axe is Minnesota, Wisconsin.
Why do we need 2 of those?
Why not? That's my
rivalry, man. Rivalry. Duh.
I'm going to go with Wisconsin. I just don't think Minnesota can match Wisconsin on either side of the ball. Braylon Allen's been awesome. Graham Mertz is getting better. And Wisconsin's defense is unbelievable against the run, especially if you're just trying to run off the tackles or try to get just outside. So I think they're like Nebraska mixed it up and was running some option, which is what gave Wisconsin's defense some fits. Minnesota doesn't do that. Plus their passing attack isn't there. So I think Wisconsin, they're going to cruise.
Mitchell?
Yeah, Badgers.
No more Bucky the Badger. A sweep for Bucky the Badger. I'm taking them as well. Next up, we've got Indiana at Purdue for the bucket game, and we could do Mitchell if you want. Give me a score for this one if you want to. You don't have to, but the bucket game.
Am I still going first?
Yeah, we'll just
Dustin, you can go first.
Okay. If you want to score here, I'm sorry. I'm going Purdue 38, Indiana 10.
It's almost. I don't know if that's generous, but I was expecting you to predict worse.
Yeah.
I think Indiana's defense will show up.
Yeah, I think Purdue's tough on defense. I think Indiana doesn't score, is what I think. I think it's 0 for Indiana, but I think in kind of an unprecedented move, my score is Indiana 0, Purdue -11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the bucket returns to Bloomington. We still aren't very good on offense, but 0 to -11 would be my guess.
I write that down so I don't forget for later.
Yeah.
0 to -11.
I do think, on a serious note, I do think Indiana totally relies on their defense. I think they're able to generate some things. It'll be hard to stop David Bell. But I think Indiana, I can't pick against them. And I think only way they can win is if Purdue's held to 21 or 17. And I'm going to take Indiana 24-17. Last minute touchdown.
Hey, crazier things have happened, so they say, but I'm thinking it's going to be more or less a lot like the way the Indiana-Minnesota game played out this past week. I'm going to take Purdue 35, Indiana 17, not Minnesota 17. But
yeah,
there you go.
I'm not far enough removed from being a player. I'm not into the media world enough to not pick the Hoosiers. So maybe my pick isn't with my brain and more my heart, but.
Hey, -11 points. I don't know what you've seen in the rule book that I haven't seen, but
you get to carry that. You get to carry that for life, though. You never have to pick Purdue to win or Indiana to lose. That's your right as a former player.
Yeah, I mean, I pick Purdue to lose every week. I don't care who they're playing. So.
Exactly. Fair enough.
So we got our last rivalry game. A rivalry so good or too good to have a trophy that they're essentially playing for something a little more, an East Division trophy. We've got number 6 Michigan at number 4 Ohio. Wait, I got that wrong. Isn't it at Michigan? Or am I mistaken?
It is at Michigan. Yep.
I don't know why I wrote it down as Michigan at Ohio State. Number 4 Ohio State at Michigan. I don't know. I've never done that. My last one of Pick'ems, and I misrepresented the home and away teams. But hey, I don't know that we've had this under the Harbaugh Day / Urban Meyer era 10-1 matchup, have we?
Were both teams 10?
Oh no, Michigan. There was one year that I thought Michigan was going to win, but it was a game that was being played in Columbus. But they also got the doors knocked out of them that game.
I think 2016 they were both 10-1. Anyway, I just, to me, this is about history. I'll believe it when I see it. I think Michigan's really good. I think they can run the ball really well. Cade McNamara went from game manager to legitimate like downfield weapon and threat, and they've got some good receivers. The defense is playing really well, but I don't know how you're going to keep the three-headed monster of Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Garrett Wilson in check, and the way C.J. Stroud is throwing the ball. And by the way, they still have a really good running back in Travion Henderson. So I think this is going to be not like the Michigan State-Ohio State game, but I think it's going to be still Ohio State like 42, Michigan 24, something like that.
Mitchell?
Yeah. I thought it was really cool what Blake Corum was doing, handing out turkeys today. That was really, really cool. I don't think he did it for this reason, but trying to harness some good for this weekend. And unfortunately, the freight train is still rolling. I think it'll be a 50-14 kind of game. I don't even think it'll be close. Ohio State's just playing as good as anybody. I think they're playing the best football in the country. Georgia's tough, obviously, but I don't see them even making it close. And if they get a chance to run it up, they will.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we're on a collision course potentially to see Georgia and Ohio State in the national championship. They're the only two teams that really seem dominant right now in college football. And it seems like I'm losing my voice or something right now, but perfect timing because it's time to wrap things up. Oh, just to clarify, I am picking Ohio State. I don't think I made that definite. I'm taking the Buckeyes as well. But it's been fun. Let's go ahead and play that outro music. Man, 16 long episodes. This week in Indiana football. Thanks, Dustin, for sticking with me for the ride this season. We'll obviously do this a little bit during the offseason as news develops and important things happen. And Mitchell, thanks for joining us on the finale of, I guess, season 1 of This Week in Indiana Football.
Absolutely. Can't wait for next year. Good things are coming. This is down here, but they're coming. And now we get to watch the best team in the country play basketball, which is the Indiana Hoosiers as well.
That's right. Indiana basketball 4-0. We'll see you on Indiana Sports Beat tomorrow and the rest of the week. Be sure to check that out Monday through Friday on YouTube. And until next time, we'll see you.
Happy Thanksgiving.